Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liberation Hour Radio. I'm your host, Varun, and today it is my privilege to welcome Anita Krajnc on our show. Anita is a Toronto-based animal justice activist and the founder of the Save Movement, a worldwide grassroots network of activists who bear witness outside slaughterhouses and document stories of those animals before they are killed, with the goal of inspiring others to take action and creating social change. Thank you so much, Anita, for coming to our show tonight, especially during the time of pandemic. So my first question for you is, how are you staying positive during the pandemic?
Thank you, Varun. It's such a pleasure to be here on Liberation Hour. So I'm very grateful for what I have, and I've been on lockdown for like 4 or 5 weeks. I haven't gone shopping at all because I guess I just make whole foods like rice and beans. So I'm very grateful to be here with my 2 dogs. I do miss the activism, the other thing I'm grateful for is I think there's a learning opportunity here. I think the whole human consciousness has been united in this pandemic, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to learn the lessons, and one of them being how we need to shift to a plant-based vegan world.
Absolutely, I agree. So let's get into the origins of the Save Movement. What inspired you to start the Save Movement in 2010?
So the Toronto Pig Save started 10 years ago, and we've been bearing witness for almost that length of time. I lived near a slaughterhouse since 2006. There used to be a pig slaughterhouse in downtown Toronto called Quality Meat Packers, and I lived within a kilometer of it. I was already vegan and an activist, and it never occurred to me to go to the slaughterhouse and do something. And when I adopted a dog in 2010, 4 years later, a dog named Mr. Bean, we would walk every day along Lakeshore, and during the rush hour traffic, we would see 7, 8, 9 transport trucks, and we would see the pigs looking out of the trucks. And in the rush hour traffic, the trucks would move slowly, so you could actually see the pig snouts and their faces sometimes poking out of the portholes. And it was shocking to me. I never really saw that before. And at that point, we decided to collect a number of people together and form a group. And one of my best friends suggested a name. I had thought like, Stop Slaughterhouses. And my friend said Toronto Pig Save. And as soon as she said that, I thought, wow, that's a good name, because it's very positive and like it's about saving. And so we called it that. And for the first 6 months, we didn't bear witness yet. We just would sneak along the railway lines and with a number of different activists and take footage of the pigs in the pen area and the pigs going to the gas chamber. So we collected a lot of footage, and then only half a year later did we start doing 3 vigils a week. So there had been a PETA human meat tray protest in June of 2011. And I was working for Rabble TV. It's like a left-wing website news station. And I had done a video, and I had to go up. I said, well, how am I going to get some good footage? And I went to Strawn and Lakeshore, and I noticed that the truck stopped there at a set of lights. So it was the first time I actually went right up to the truck when I was doing this video, because I was reporting on the PETA protest. And it was the first time I went right up to the truck, and a pig looked at me, and I couldn't believe it. It was like this beautiful, beautiful pig asking for help. And the pig was in a dungeon, like a dark, filthy dungeon with these other pigs in the transport truck. And it was at that moment that I promised the pig a minimum of 3 vigils a week. Previously, I had taught courses in social movement strategies and tactics at Queen's University in Kingston. I had been there for 3 years before I came to Toronto. And I knew that Gandhi and other, like the civil rights movement, had staged frequent direct actions to be effective. You can't just do 1 protest a year or 1 a month. You have to be out there regularly. And so I was just drawing on the lessons from those social movements. And so at that point, I promised the pig, because I knew that would be more effective, to be out there a lot. And so, yeah, that's the point at which we promised 3 vigils a week. And we kept that promise for years until that slaughterhouse went bankrupt. And then after that, we started doing vigils at Fearman's in Burlington. And we also did weekly vigils at other slaughterhouses like the cow and chicken slaughterhouses in Toronto.
That's wonderful. That's really inspiring. And I read about it. And since I read about your story, it really inspired me to go out and take action for the animals. I also do vigils. And it's really heart-wrenching seeing these animals in transport trucks. It makes you want to do something about it. So that's really powerful. So my next question is, like, it started in Toronto, then it expanded to Burlington and other areas of Ontario. How many chapters do you have right now? And in like what parts of the world?
So yeah, so it's the first chapter was in Toronto, but then within months after we started doing vigils, there was a chapter in Burlington, and then we did videos, and then Melbourne started a chapter, then New York City. So then in a couple of years later, then a bunch of chapters formed in England. So within 5 years, we had 35 chapters. But then in the next 5 years, we grew to about over 900 chapters. Most of those chapters are animal safe chapters. We also started a climate safe branch and a health safe branch. So there are about 200 climate safe, and then there's about 50 or so health safe. So altogether, we almost have like 1,000 chapters. But the thing is, it grew a lot more in the last 5 years than in the first 5 years.
That's really inspiring. So the SAFE movement does a lot of bearing witness outside slaughterhouses. What is the point of that? How does bearing witness bring social change?
So that's a great question. It's like one tactic, doing vigils are listed as one tactic. If you look at Gene Sharp's book on types of tactics in nonviolent direct action, he lists 198. There are many more, but in the book he lists 198. And vigils are one of the lower forms of, direct action. Like they're not, the way he listed it, they were an easier form of activism. But that's thinking of vigils as, like doing a vigil outside an office or something, or, vigils they don't seem like such a, powerful form of action. But when you do a vigil in front of a slaughterhouse, it's a different thing, because it's a very intense experience, because you're at ground zero. It's like you're doing a vigil at a war zone. Like a vigil at a war zone is different from doing it outside, a corporate office. So it is a very intense experience, but it is one tactic. And I think the reason we had focused on this tactic is because it's an introduction into activism for many people. Because once they see the animal victims eye to eye, face to face, it increases their motivation to do more for the animals. So you can almost see it as an entry point into the animal rights movement. And then from there, you can continue to do vigils, inspire more people to come to vigils, or you could do other forms of activism like, cubes of truth or disruptions, and, hosting films, giving vegan food to people in need on the streets. There's so many other things you can do. But I think it's, one important, even essential part of activism in the animal rights movement, because you're meeting the victims face to face, and your level of accountability is so much higher because of that. Like you're responsible, you're accountable for the human species and what we're doing when you go to these vigils.
Absolutely. So right now we are having this pandemic, which is restricting a lot of activists from going out and doing activism. But the SAVE movement is still taking actions, but using social media platforms. What is the SAVE movement doing right now? What actions is it taking?
So at first we struggled. We were thinking like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? What does this mean for vigils? And could we continue vigils? And some people there were a few people that continued vigils. I mean, I heard a few people went to the cow slaughterhouse in Toronto. bear witness, and the police came right away and told them to stand, 6 feet or 1 or 2 meters apart. But it's interesting that they were still able to do the vigil. 3 people went. I know there's a group called Israel Animal Save, and they wore all the gear, all the protective masks and all that, and they continued to do their vigil. So initially in Berlin, we had some activists, Aisha and Simone, Siobhan and Laura and other local activists. Just around the time that they were introducing the lockdown, they did a street action, where they dressed in orange suits and related the outbreak of the pandemic to consuming animals and animal products. And so that was some early actions. And then we were still struggling, like, how do we make most use of this? And then we thought, like, why don't we have people try to mimic going to a vigil, but doing it on social media? So the way to mimic that is, while you're confined at home, try to think about the more extreme confinement that animals face. So we came up with a coronavirus confinement challenge. Of course, we can never mimic the suffering that animals go through, and we're not pretending to do that. But what we can do is we can empathize, and we can try to, and just by sitting in a cage for an hour, that forces people to think about, like, what the animals are going through. And if they post it on social media, they can have their friends see and think about what the animals are going through right at this moment. And so the hundreds of people have taken the challenge around the world, on 6 continents in many, many countries. And so if you go to our social media platforms, you could see carousel posts of people taking the challenge. We've even had a celebrity in LA, Nina Bergman, take it. We've also had a celebrity in India take it, Ms. Syed. So we're challenging other celebrities like Moby and other celebrities to take it as well, just to give it more attention. So yes, we're going to be doing this coronavirus confinement challenge till the end of the lockdown. So that could be, another month or 2 or more. And just so people can do something that is similar to a vigil, where the focus is on how the animals are being exploited and how they're suffering.
That's very innovative. Would you like to give some examples of what some activists have done in the confinement challenge, like different ideas that they have employed to make the challenge more innovative and to help people relate to the animals who are confined?
Yes, Ryuji, he's an activist in LA. He's currently in Paris. He just did a video that's going to be on the Animal Save Movement YouTube channel that you could check out, and he showed some highlights. So for example, James Hoot, who's in Indonesia, he went into a small cage like a hen would be in, and was there for a full hour. And so he was all scrunched up, his neck hurt. He had little wires sort of indented into the shape of the wires, indented into his flesh, because he was all crammed in there. And meanwhile, one of the hens they rescued at a vigil was walking around the cage and wondering what was happening to him. Simone at a sanctuary just outside Rome, he did a live stream showing different types of confinement that you could do with Massimo, who opened the sanctuary. And the one that Simone did was he went into a barrel of cold water and put a hook in his mouth and did that. And he was like trembling and cold, and just to raise awareness about how fish suffer and how much pain they feel. Let's see what else. A lot of people have created a square and just sat there for a while. So you can make it simple or you can make it complex. Nina Bergman, this Hollywood celebrity, she went to a closed down zoo in LA and took some footage of what it would be like to be confined. People who wanted to raise awareness about fur animals would juxtapose a footage of a fox in a cage and sit in a cage as well. Yeah, so those are some of the examples. I don't know, Varun, if you've seen any examples that have inspired you.
I saw one in which an activist was sitting in a sanctuary, I think in a pig barn, and he tied himself up with something, and there was a pig who was coming close to the activist, curious what was going on, and it seemed like the pig was trying to help the activist out. So that was like really interesting.
Yes, that was Simone. He did the challenge 2 weeks in a row. So he did it just this last Friday as well. And so he chained himself outside, and then a pig who had himself been chained and confined was very unhappy and worried about Simone, and he kept on going around and around trying to see if he could free him. So it just shows that pigs have high ethics that we can all learn from and emulate.
Absolutely. So a few years ago, Anita, you got arrested for giving water to pigs, and that story went viral all over the world. That was a big turn in the animal rights movement. Like, there were people from all over the world supporting you. There was this hashtag called "I Stand with Anita. Compassion is not a crime." What would you like to say about that?
Yes, I'm very grateful for all the support, and that happened 5 years into our activism. So it happened in June 2015. So the slaughterhouses, namely Fearman's quote unquote Pork Incorporated, had asked its drivers to like step it up because we were interfering with their business, with the vigils and with the viral videos of us giving water to pigs. And so they wanted to put a stop to it. And so they had put the word out that the drivers should try to charge us or go to the police. And finally, there was a driver that agreed to it. This guy, Jeff, who worked for a particular farm, that pig factory that had a reputation of like violating the rules. Like, they themselves have been charged with manure going into the water stream in Oxford. So anyway, so I was charged at that time, and it was criminal mischief, interference with property. And I was only charged like 5-6 weeks after the incident. So when the incident happened, I had no idea that I'd be charged. And police came to my home and issued the summons. And I actually asked the police officer to come inside and look at the video of the incident, because I was shocked that I would be charged for that. I just couldn't believe it. And so the police officer reluctantly finally agreed and looked at it, and I go, look, I was just giving water to the pigs, because we had video. Luckily, there was a vigil of, I think it was 4 or 5 people that day, and Nikki from Burlington took footage. And so without that footage, that incident would have not gone viral. I'm 100% sure. It just shows you how important as activists it is, to take footage, and so we had the footage, and we did a video. Even before I was charged, we thought, wow, this is quite an incident. This guy, saying, us giving water, and him saying, don't give water, I'll call the police. They're not human, you dumb freaking broad. We just thought, oh, wow, this is like a good video. So we just put out the video. Can you give this guy some water?
Don't give them anything. God, put water in there.
If you give them thirsty, Jesus said, if you're thirsty, give them water.
No,
if you're homeless,
you know what? These are not humans, you dumb frickin' broad. Hello? You know what? Now we're gonna call the cops.
Have some compassion. Have some compassion.
Let's call the cops.
Have some compassion.
What do we do?
Jesus.
911?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. What do you got in that water?
Water.
No. How do I know?
Test it. I'll pick this
Yeah,
up.
don't put it in there again.
This pig's thirsty, so they'll have water.
You do it again and I'll slap it out of your hands.
Go ahead. If you want to do assault charges, go ahead. Film this. If he wants to assault charges,
please.
go ahead.
I'm gonna be lying here.
And yeah, so that was the video that actually showed the police officer. And then there was a pretrial phase. And even at the pretrial, there were like scrums of media reporting on it. So first the story at the pretrial stage went national. And then towards once it was heading towards trial, but even before it was heading to trial, even went into all the British papers, and from there it went global. So yeah, it became a global story, and a lot of it had to do with social media and friends, the animal rights friends who used that hashtag compassion is not a crime. There was a petition with hundreds of thousands of signatures. So it's very interesting. It was first like viralized on social media, but then it also became a big media story.
This brings to my next question about Bill 156, which is proposed by the conservative government to stop activists from giving water to pigs and bearing witness. What is the SAVE movement trying to do to stop that bill? Yeah,
this bill is so concerning. It's like the opposite of what is good or right. It's like it's basically saying it is illegal to look and try to help. Like it goes against what is ethical. It goes against the golden rule. So they're trying to criminalize, just doing the right thing. It's just beyond imagination. It's like an ag-gag bill. And a lot of these ag-gag bills have been defeated in the US. So the Animal Save movement did launch a petition, and it's working with local activists and other groups. So a pressure campaign was started by the activist community in Toronto, which included all the groups and all the activists. And it's been a good pressure campaign where activists are asked to meet with their MPPs. I've met with a couple, including the former leader of the Liberal Party, Catherine Wynne. Had a meeting with her. It was very positive, along with Jacinta. And so what it's led to, what I like about this pressure campaign is I think we've never, in my experience, I don't think we've ever had so many meetings with MPPs. It's been a very positive experience in that light. And I think we need to continue to do that. I think we need to move away from just doing, actions on the street. I think we also need to do political advocacy. We need to do both, because the decision makers in politics, they're not even aware of what we're doing at vigils. We need to invite them to vigils. We need to invite them to cubes of truth and to disruptions and things like that, to understand why we're doing what we do. Because so many people love animals and care about animals. It's just we need to get all those people who care about animals and all these vegans to become activists. And I think as activists, one way to do that is by having a media strategy and having a political advocacy strategy. And that's why I think the pressure campaign has been really well done. And a lot of people have taken a leadership role in that. And so, we're sort of following in the footsteps of all these great activists who are leading that campaign.
Bill 156, it will also prevent journalists from doing their job. As someone who has a degree in journalism, it really worries me about the future of journalism with bills like this one. If a journalist is, for instance, doing investigation, they can be criminally charged. So it's a really draconian law.
Whistleblowers are a fundamental part of our democracy. And so journalists have played that role. When you look at Upton St. Clair, he wrote the book called, Upton St. Clair's book. I'm just trying to think of the title. Do you know the book I'm referring to? In the early 1900s, he wrote a book, and he had gone into Chicago slaughterhouses as an investigative journalist. He took a job there, and he showed that they were violating, first of all, cruelty, just the fundamental norms of cruelty, and also that there were all sorts of violations in terms of the health codes. And so, so the book he wrote was called The Jungle. And I think it was published in 1906. And that book, that investigative journalism, led Roosevelt, the president of the U.S., to create all these this new legislation to protect health and safety of of the consumers and also of the workers. So investigative journalism historically has played such an important role in like protecting, the environment, animals, public health. So, and it's a fundamental part of democracy. So yes, I think this bill, this ag bill, it's just the opposite of what is needed in civil society and democracies. Like it's an attack on fundamental values and protections.
Absolutely. For instance, it's not just affecting the animals, the activists, the whistleblower, but also concerned citizens who may want to know what's going on. So it is really unfortunate that the government is trying to pass it.
I think we need to defeat if the Ford government is going to try to pass that type of legislation, at the next elections, we should do everything possible to defeat them, so that they're held accountable for these kinds of destructive and anti-democratic initiatives.
Absolutely. So as you have stated earlier, that the SAVE movement is now trying to incorporate political advocacy pressure campaigns. So what are some of the examples of those campaigns that you have incorporated into SAVE's activism?
Well, we learned step by step. So I think the Stop Maple Leaf Violence, like the campaign that you and Rob are running against the proposed slaughterhouse in London, has helped us. Like it was such a learning experience to see all the different types of actions that went beyond disruptions, vigils, or cubes. Like in this case, there was the infiltration of the stockholders meeting, the annual meeting. I thought where Rob was able to speak directly to the CEO. I thought that was great. Then all the other actions associated with it, going to the site, the construction site, and doing protests there. And then the other huge innovation for our movement was doing home demonstrations at the CEO's home in Toronto. And things like that, which resulted in Rob and myself meeting with executives at Maple Leaf because of the home demos. So it just shows you, like, if you use many different tactics, it's a way of really escalating pressure and I think moving the agenda forward and getting closer to where you want to get. So I think you need to think in terms of campaigns. And when you have campaigns, you have demands, you have to have different strategies, and then tactics are the last thing you do. So that's a real learning experience for the SAVE movement, because we tended to focus on just the tactic of bearing witness. But when you start doing campaigns, which we learned from the Maple Leaf example, there's much more rich assortment of tactics that you use, and they tend to be escalating tactics. And so we're doing that more and more now. So more recently, we started a Slaughter-Free City campaign in partnership with Robert Grillo's group, Slaughter-Free Cities in Chicago. And we're launching that in Toronto with Gabriel Nadler. So he's done already some actions for slaughter-free campuses at University of Toronto. In New York City, there's a slaughter-free campaign there because they have about 100 live markets. And so they're working with Slaughter-Free Cities to try to close down the live markets. Ellen Dent and Laura in Los Angeles have started a Slaughter-Free City campaign. And so now, just worldwide, we're going to launch a major initiative because of this lockdown. So we have time to really build the campaign. So currently we are developing a plan to spread this campaign throughout our chapters. And Azul, she's a lawyer in Colombia, is trying to expand it in Latin America. Siobhan and Laura in Berlin are working on a plan for Europe. And we just had a meeting today with Robert Grillo from Free From Harm and the founder of Slaughter-Free Cities about how to spread this campaign worldwide. So the objective is to close down slaughterhouses in cities, But it can also be to create meat, dairy, egg-free zones. So you could have slaughter-free campuses where your campaign is to veganize the cafeteria menus, and at the same time mobilize and politicize the students to do those campus campaigns, but also to work at the city level and try to pressure the city to take on slaughter-free initiatives. You know, for example, the city of Toronto has signed on to healthy city initiatives, where its objective is to decrease food waste and to decrease quote unquote meat consumption or animal flesh consumption. So you know, we can start working with cities to really, you know, meet those objectives, because both those objectives are related to consumption of meat, dairy, and eggs. Like if you look at food waste, there's so much food waste coming from recalls of hundreds of thousands of tons of, you know, cow flesh or chicken flesh, you know, so most recalls are related to that, to animal exploitation. So yeah, so that's one initiative we're working on, slaughter-free cities. Another one is focusing on banning live exports. And that's just for animal save. And then for climate save, we have a campaign called Planet versus Cargill, targeting a big animal feed company and also a big slaughterhouse company. And so we have like weekly initiatives on that were launched this week. So we have a campaign this week that's targeting one of their customers. So Cargill's sort of customer for sugars, you know, corn syrup is McDonald's. And so we have a campaign, and every week we're going to look at different customers. And then for Health Save, we also have a number of campaigns that are oriented towards veganizing menus at schools, hospitals, and restaurants. And we also have another campaign called Health Save Streets, which is to provide food in an accessible way to people in need.
Really interesting and innovative, and I like how the Save movement is trying to incorporate more political tactics and pressuring these big companies. Which brings me to my next question: why Cargill? Cargill, as we all know, is America's largest privately owned company. Why target Cargill?
So yes, good question. Like often in like campaigns, you have to choose a target, like one target rather than a number of targets. Cargill is the third biggest animal feed company in the world. The first two are Asian, so that was part of the reasoning behind it. We just thought we should start with a US company. And also Cargill is one of the three big animal feed companies that have been identified as being responsible for deforesting the Amazon. So in 2006, Greenpeace UK did a campaign against Cargill and its customers like KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, as being responsible for Amazon deforestation. They had built, they had been responsible for building a roadway into the heart of the Amazon, and they built like silos to store soy right along the Amazon River. It was horrific. And so more recently, there's a group called Mighty Earth based in the United States. And they did a follow-up study to the Greenpeace report called Still at It. So that was published a couple years ago. And what they did is they looked at a number of different 20 or so land areas in the Amazon and try to find out what was happening out locally, like who was buying the soy from these deforested areas of the Amazon. And it was Cargill, Bunge, and ADM, three big American animal feed companies, were still there. So that's why they called the report Still at It. The New York Times then had a journalist go down to the Amazon and verified what Mighty Earth had found. And then more recently, half a year ago or so, Mighty Earth came out with another report called Cargill, the worst company in the world. So it's on, if you Google it, you can read this report, and it shows how they're responsible for destroying forests, for killing so many animals, for child labor abuse, with respect, and human rights abuses, labor abuses, and so many other things. So they've been identified as the worst company in the world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Cargill, we also have a big Cargill slaughterhouse in Guelph, where we go every now and then to bear witness to cows, and they kill 1,500 a day. That's a really big number. So I'm glad the Safe Movement and other activist groups, environmental groups, are holding Cargill accountable for committing such crimes against animals, the workers, the forests.
Yes. Cargill has about 20 facilities in Ontario. So they have a hatchery, they have a chicken slaughterhouse near London, they have a cow slaughterhouse in Guelph. They have many slaughterhouses across the country. They kill more than 50% of the cows in Canada. To give you an idea of how many. So they're a big company in Canada, but they have facilities in 70 countries. One of the really ominous, horrible things they've done recently is they have a Hatching Hope program where they're trying to increase chicken consumption in Asia. So they're working with Heifer International, which is a supposedly, a nonprofit trying to help feed people. But instead of continuing sustainable protein food like plant-based food, what they're doing, they partnered with this nonprofit group, which accepts donations for this program, which really benefits them privately. They are promoting the consumption of chicken as sustainable protein consumption, whereas we all know that the most sustainable protein consumption is plant-based. So yeah, it is truly, truly horrific what they're doing. So we need to put a stop to that and really publicize what they're doing. So because we have groups around the world, we've launched this global campaign. And so we have activists in India that are exposing Cargill, in Latin America, Europe, and North America. So I think it's really important. And the good thing about this campaign is Mighty Earth has done a lot of the research. So it's very good for us to partner with them and use the information that they've assembled to launch our campaigns.
Yeah, it's really horrific how they are capitalizing on the suffering of people in developing countries and using that to increase the consumption of chicken flesh, which is it is criminal what they're doing. So my next question, which is not something I prepared, who is that goat behind you? That portrait of the goat.
Yes, this is Lily, the mother goat. There she is. Yeah, this is a goat that was during the pig trial. There was one day when it was snowing. It was miserable weather. Almost nobody came to the pre-trial. Just a few of us. It was Louise Jorgensen, Sylvia Fraser, who's in her 80s, Jenny McQueen, myself, and we thought, oh, okay, there's so few people. What are we going to do? Let's make something of this day. So we said, okay, let's do a vigil in Milton, because the courthouse was in Milton. So there's a chicken slaughterhouse that's right across the street from a vegan restaurant. So we tried to do a vigil there, but we also tried to maybe Jenny McQueen was trying to get some dead chicken bodies for NARD. And so National Animal Rights Day, to hold the animals. And so in the end, she tried to get that. And then in the end, we didn't do a vigil. So we said, oh, okay, well, let's find out if there are slaughterhouses near Milton. And then we found a halal slaughterhouse just outside Milton. So we drove there. And we just entered the property. And Lily was in the kill pen area. And she was poking her head out the whole time. We're talking for an hour, while we were there. And Louise went up to her and spent a lot of time with her and really connected with her. So we said, let's try to negotiate her release. And so we tried to negotiate her release. We said, please spare her, please spare her. In the end, they did ask for funding, which is, generally as a rule, one should not pay, one should never pay a slaughterhouse for the release of an animal. But at that point, there was such a strong connection, and we really wanted to get Lily out. So in the end, you know, there was some payment for it, for Lily. But so we put Lily at the back of Louise's hatchback, and then she got a forever home, and she preferred to live inside. Her body was so worn down from years of being exploited for her milk and for her babies taken away, that she was always shivering and cold, and she ended up living in the house with the dogs, and she would go out when she wanted, and she was the sweetest soul. She was I considered her my best friend. Yeah, and unfortunately she passed away last summer. I honestly, she was the most grounded being, just a beautiful being. We felt terrible about having paid for her, so we then assembled a vegan basket and went back the next week and tried to get the money back, but instead present a vegan basket. But there was nobody there that day, and it was a Saturday, so it might have been a religious holiday. But all the doors were open, and the animals were in the pen. So we just explored the slaughterhouse, and it was at that time that I saw one of the worst things I've ever seen. And it was just like, I saw a skinned like face that was just like on the floor, and it was one of the most horrific things. It sort of led to a bit of secondary trauma for me. And after that, I didn't go to as many vigils as I used to. I used to do 3 vigils a week, and then I sort of stopped going to the cow ones and started just doing the pig ones. So, but Lily, we started an Instagram for Lily. There's a Facebook page called Lily the Mother Goat. We tried to raise awareness about goats through Lily as an ambassador, and we created some social media. And I think she became a strong ambassador for goats. And I don't know if did you ever meet her, Varun?
I've never met her, but I've seen her like videos and photos on social media. Yeah, I used to follow. I still follow that page, and it was nice to see an animal who was able to live a free life.
Yeah, as a house goat, which was
Yeah. So my next question is related to Walking Phoenix. How is he supportive of the Save movement and what he does for the animal rights movement?
Yeah, Joaquin has been incredible. Like he's, I guess the thing that I think was amazing for a lot of people was to hear his Academy Award speech. But even the lead up to it, it was so beautiful the way he did it. He won all these awards, Critics' Choice, or all these different awards, the BAFTA awards in England, and the way he built it up, like the BAFTA awards, he talked about the importance of having actors from all different backgrounds being awarded, because he said there was a bias in our film industry where we don't have representation. So he talked about that. It was so amazing. And then finally with the Academy Awards, like could you believe it when he was speaking? Like I couldn't believe how amazing it was. It was perfect. So yes, he's done that. Like he's done that for when he won the awards. But in terms of his previous history, he has a long history, including his brother, River Phoenix, of, speaking up for animals, working with PETA, doing billboards for PETA. He started going to vigils for the last couple of years, and he's been to dozens of vigils. He even brought his mother. His partner comes to the vigils. She's a famous actress in her own right. Maybe help me with her name, sorry. Rooney Mara, she comes to the vigils. So he's come to all these vigils. So I met him a few times in LA at the vigils. So we then had the Be Fair, Be Vegan campaign in Toronto, which is really exciting because it was showing up at the same time as the Montreal campaign this past fall. And so we had the Toronto Veg Fest around the same time. And we were brainstorming, like, how do we get more media attention for the Be Fair, Be Vegan? And we were literally just at the Toronto Pig Safe table, and I was just asking people. This is the way we always organize. We always ask everybody, like, okay, I was asking Jenny McQueen, asking Lori, others. I was saying, what should we do? What should we do? And we thought, well, let's reach out to Joaquin Phoenix. And this was the Sunday at the Veg Fest. And So I typed this in, like I emailed him like at 4 p.m. during the Veg Fest. And then that evening he responded and I couldn't believe it. And then the event was for Monday. So he said, oh yeah, I have a narrow window of opportunity. I have a screening and then an awards festival. So after his screening of his film, he had a little bit of time before winning a big award in Toronto. And then he came, that was all organized within hours. So, and then we had to get a press release out and we got lots of media. So it happened, like we got tons of media of the Be Fair, Be Vegan because of Walking Phoenix. So he helped us then. And yeah, he continues. After one of the award ceremonies, he went to a vigil in his tux in LA. Can you believe that? He went to Farmer John's, which is about 15 minutes drive from downtown Hollywood. And in his tux, he went to a vigil and gave water to the pigs. And then we did a press release for that, got tons of media. So he, he's just, he's there to help. He's done a lot of, he's being more outspoken. There's no question about it. Like more recently, I think the vigils have helped him. And now he's just ready to, be out there and speak out more. And yeah, he's certainly, incredible human being. He's some wonderful animal rights activists. And I want to give credit to, like, there's so many celebrities that have done a good job. Like in India, there's a lot of Bollywood actors that are supportive of veganism and animal rights. And in LA, there's lots of celebrities that come to the vigil. So we really appreciate everyone who's, using their fame for a good cause.
Yeah, what I like about Walking Phoenix is how he's using his privileges to speak out against, systemic oppressions, be it non-human animals or, humans, which is really interesting. Even recently, not recently, like I think a month or two ago, he rescued a calf and their mom from a slaughterhouse, which was really mind-blowing.
Yes, that's so beautiful. Yeah, he did that rescue of the mother cow and the calf the day after he won the Academy Award. So it was very suiting because at the Academy Awards, he spoke up for the mother cows and their milk. And he says humans should not be stealing their milk and exploiting these beautiful cows. And
I think that we've become very disconnected from the natural world. And many of us, what we're guilty of is an egocentric worldview, the belief that we're the center of the universe. We go into the natural world and we plunder it for its resources. We feel entitled to artificially inseminate a cow, and when she gives birth, we steal her baby, even though her cries of anguish are unmistakable. And then we take her milk that's intended for a calf, and we put it in our coffee and our cereal.
And then the next day, he rescued, he and a group of people, including Amy Jean Davis and Sean Munson, who's director of Earthlings, and his mom was there. And they went to a slaughterhouse where they had done vigils before and had a relationship with an owner. And there was a calf that was born there. And so that calf was rescued and the mother.
This brings me to my last question. What does the future of the movement hold?
Yeah, I think we need to be more effective in terms of what we do. So beyond doing just vigils, we have to do campaigns. We have to work together more. So, we have to work together with other animal rights groups, but maybe in terms of, Joaquim's example, work in terms of other social justice movements as well. We need a bigger movement. We all have to work together. And I think, we're facing an existential crisis for life on this planet because of the climate crisis. And certainly the pandemics have put a pause button for a lot of people to, sort of reassess their life and, what we're doing in terms of the economy and how destructive we are on the planet. And, we slowed down a bit, and I think thinking a bit. And I think, we shouldn't be flying planes because of climate change, but that happened because of the pandemic. So it's very odd that it happened for a different reason. But, Greta said, we shouldn't be flying. We should be eating vegan food for ethical and environmental and climate reasons. So we need to use this opportunity as this animal save movement to push for a plant-based movement vegan movement now. And, we need a systemic change. So I think that's what we need to focus on. Individually, we need to do the right thing. Like Greta said, we shouldn't fly, we should eat vegan food. But then at a systems level, we need to change the system and, end animal agriculture and fishing and shift to a fully plant-based system right away. And I think the pandemic, climate crisis, and the animal crisis, and all these different things, all these co-benefits of going vegan have all come together in a strange way. I mean, who would have thought it was a pandemic that sort of really made us think about it all, but it's all interconnected. And so I think, yeah, we need to be a global movement that starts linking these different issues and doing the right thing, because there's so many co-benefits, in doing the right thing.
Absolutely. So is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners and viewers?
I think it's been really wonderful doing activism in Toronto and London and seeing how things are taking off. And I very much appreciate like all the different experiences that everybody brings to the movement. And I think the key to, building a strong movement is if we all focus on our strengths and sort of appreciate the strengths of others and together, work on all these issues like animal rights, human rights, social justice. And that makes it, I think we'll build a better, stronger community and we'll build the world that we want to see, you sort of using Gandhi's, philosophy.
Thank you so very much, Anita, for coming on the show. It was my honor to have you and learn about your experiences, about the tactics and strategies that you employ in your activism and how we can make our movement grow more.
Oh.
And thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you next week at 8 p.m. EST. Thank you.
Thank you, Varun.